Hey everyone, this is the Marketing Perspective Podcast, where we get the latest people and the latest marketing experts on the podcast, and we just have a simple conversation. Today we have Gemma, and we're going to be talking about how to sell internationally on Amazon, which has been a hot topic. Really, we know the Amazon marketplace is really, really amazing, but there's a lot of other opportunities of expanding marketplaces that have very low competition. We know that internationally they're about 3 or 6 months behind. So if you're in the US market, you know what's going to happen on these other international markets. So yes, Gemma's going to tell us a little bit about her, what she does, and then we'll dive right into the conversation. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks, Victor. So, my name's Gemma. I am a senior paid media strategist at Fountain. So Fountain are a UK-based agency. We do also work in Canada as well. And we tend to specialise in performance marketing. So we work across multiple channels and create strategies across paid media, organic search and conversion rate optimization for clients. So, we work with lots of different people.
That's great. So just starting out, what do you see as the best channel out there, that the best marketplaces? What are your top marketplaces that you're really trying to push clients? Like, we know Germany's big in Europe, we know UK's big. What are the, like, a list of your top three that you would suggest to push clients to basically pushing those particular markets?
I think, to be honest with you, as in, you mean within the UK and Germany, or you mean which kind of countries?
So if the person is in the US market and you went to them and said, hey, you have to be in these three marketplaces, like, there's so much opportunity, what would you say? Like, what would you say is the top three that most Amazon sellers should be in?
It's a tricky one, to be honest with you. I mean, I guess the challenge you've got is that from a UK point of view, Amazon is obviously massive, and obviously loads and loads of people in the UK use it. But I think one of the challenges we've got here is that we haven't really captured the full potential of it. I think certainly over in the US, you've done a much better job of doing it. So in terms of, like, the marketplaces that are working best, I think really it's such an open opportunity at the moment. I think that's the real kind of benefit, really.
Yeah.
I think really, if you took advantage of any of it, but certainly, like you say, the UK and Germany are the ones where it's leading. Like, certainly when we've been selling in the UK, like, Germany would be the next outlet. And then I think maybe you'd be looking at, like, I don't know, possibly France, something like that. But yeah, I think it's a real open, I think that's kind of where we are with it. I feel like it's still, for a lot of agencies, we're not really taking advantage of it and not really embedding it in strategies and whatnot. So I'd be really interested to throw the question back to you, because I think you're taking much better advantage of it over in the US compared to us.
Yeah. No, yeah, and you're exactly right. What would you say are the biggest differences between the US market and the UK market? Because we know that there's a lot of big differences, even like on the Amazon on platform stuff. What would you say are the biggest differences between UK and US?
I guess it's probably the amount of choice, and I think as well that we're a little bit behind in terms of things like subscription. So I think there's still a real resistance in the UK to really trust and believe in subscription marketing. And I know that that's something that Amazon's really, really pushing. I think that we're, in terms of product choice as well, I think there's probably not really as much choice. But
yeah,
I think, to be honest with you, I think it's more, we're not really marketed to on it. Like, that sounds really silly. I think it's certainly in the UK, it's embedded so much. People go on there and they buy, I guess it's obviously similar in that, between, like, Google, you either Google something and then go to Amazon, or you just go straight to Amazon and search for it yourself. I don't think the strategies that are employed on Amazon in the UK are particularly, they're not particularly advanced. So whereas, for example, you might easily find a competitor product, or in the US, I wonder if you'd find it much easier to find alternatives. I think that you find that a lot more challenging. And there's a lot more, I don't know about the quality of the products on some of it as well. So certainly in the UK, I think the product quality can be a bit questionable, and it feels in some cases a bit like it's going down the eBay route, which I'm not sure all consumers want. But yeah, it's kind of it's an interesting one with Amazon, because I just don't think it's utilised in the same way. So you don't get exposed to like I say, upselling, cross-selling, all of that stuff in quite the same frequency as I think you do when you're looking at it in the US. As in, I might be wrong, but I feel like there's probably a lot more to come. So whereas people complain every other Instagram post is an ad, that kind of thing, that's probably what's going to be more likely to happen on Amazon. And I know obviously it's full of ads, but it's so slick, and obviously the checkout process is obviously so optimized, and it's not the nicest site you've ever seen in the world. I think that's kind of one of those funny quirks of Amazon. It looks awful, but it works, and it clearly converts really well. So yeah, it's a really interesting one for me, because I just feel like it's Amazon, so it shouldn't be that new, but it just feels so new to us here, which probably sounds really really basic, but it's true. So yeah, I'd be interested to know like how you see it from your point of view, like whether you see the same kind of thing, whether you feel like it's a much more mature market in the US, or whether you feel,
Yeah. Everyone uses Amazon in the US. I have 20 boxes right outside my door. So yes, it's a very important, and especially like a lot of people, it's so convenient, and the American like shopper is just in general like, oh, I need that. Oh, I need that. Oh, I need that. And then you can just like that. In fact, it's like 2 buttons away. We're very conditioned to have that part of us.
Yeah.
And we're used to like doing things. We're the grocery market, we don't really take off yet. It's very, very in its small stages when it comes to groceries. Usually people still go out to get those things.
Yeah.
But a lot of it, when it comes to like these other type of products, we just get it on Amazon because the convenience, the trust factor, we know the reviews and things like that. So it is definitely bigger, and I see that trend eventually happening in also the UK as well, just from natural convenience. People prioritize speed over everything that's happening, and Amazon right now is the fastest at making these things happen. So that's what I would say to that.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I wonder if, I don't know, maybe I'm over. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking about this too much, but I feel like sustainability, certainly here in Europe, people are more conscious of sustainability. And I think that whilst I completely agree with you on the delivery stuff, I think if you're a Prime, if you have Amazon Prime, you get everything pretty much next day. You get conditioned to get used to that. I think it sets other standards for other companies, and potentially makes it quite challenging, I think. But on the flip side, I think it feels like there's almost a bit of a resistance to Amazon as well, because of globalization, because of where some of the products come from, because of, it's not just Amazon, it will be any company that falls in that boat or comes under that umbrella. But I also wonder if there's almost a bit of some people actively won't use Amazon because of it's not because of what it stands for, and because of that kind of thing. And we'll look at local companies, and we'll look at things in a slightly different way. So but like you said, fundamentally we all want things quickly and we all want things cheap. Let's face it, and you're right, that will always overrule any of the other stuff. Like, it's all very well to say we're all very moral, and we all do, but I'm the same. I use Amazon probably too much. So I'm, I'd love to say all my purchases are highly ethical, but they're probably not. So yeah. I'd like to work towards that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not, I don't necessarily feel good about that, but I think everyone probably falls under the same bracket with that, I would say.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what would you say is a good approach to like, how would you approach the US market differently than the UK market? So that knowing that, okay, I assume that you're from the UK, just to like, yes. So
Yeah,
knowing that you are in the consumer mindset,
yeah.
how would you approach a US seller, and how would you apply that differently to a UK seller? Like, what are the key differences between the customer, between a UK person and a US person?
Okay. I would always say it's probably more the language that you use when you're talking to them, and maybe you'd be a lot more direct with someone from the US than you would be from the UK. I think in the UK, we're notoriously, I won't use the word fluffy because that's not really strictly true, but in terms of our language, the way that we talk to each other, will, why use 2 words when you can use 20, probably springs to mind.
Yeah.
I think that we're much more like that. We're much more self-deprecating. And I think people don't like being sold to in the UK particularly. So you have to find, I think messaging and whatnot is different. Whereas I think in the US, you can be a lot more direct in terms of your language and how you would target, be a lot more blatant. And I think it works, it resonates, it's okay. Whereas if you tried the same tactics in the UK, probably wouldn't work as well. That said, I've also heard people say to me that there's not really that much different, and all this talk of targeting US consumers differently to the UK is rubbish. And in some industries and markets, yes, that's probably true, but I would argue that generally for retail, that kind of thing, I think it's important to consider. Is that the same sort of thing in your experience, or what?
And just to get one thing out of the way, like, no one actually likes to be sold to. Nobody is like, oh my gosh, yes, let me go to inside the Vegas strip mall and like let me just like literally just get sold to a million different times. So no one actually like enjoys being sold to. But with the exception, yes, I know exactly what you're saying. In America, we're so used to like constantly having things thrown in our face that we're almost like conditioned to it in a way, with billboards, ads all over the place, with all the ads like all within our phones saying buy this, buy this, buy this. We're so conditioned to that because of how competitive it is.
Yeah.
UK, you might have a little bit more like warming up to a brand before you buy it, but in the US it's very, very standard to buy a brand you maybe never heard of before, just for the convenience of the product, like because we just need speed. We are like saying, okay, I'm going on Amazon, I need to buy this right now, I need it, whatever it is, and then we literally just buy it because we love buying things. That is America. We love buying things, we love making money and buying things. That's the two things we like as Americans. You might in a UK, you might look for a more premium brand product, while others might be looking just for the convenience of the price and the speed. Because if it's not Prime, it's most likely not going to get bought. If it's not Prime shipping, because we need it within the day. It like tomorrow is a little bit too late. Like that's how it was. Like we want same day shipping is like the perfect world for us.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So like that's how fast we like our products, and everything else there.
Have you not found that? I mean, I hate to mention COVID because I'm sure we're all a bit tired of talking about that sort of stuff. But have you not found that COVID has impacted people's expectations a little bit? Because one of the things we've had is the waiting times for products. Obviously, for certain things like say bikes or home and garden stuff, or the waiting lists are the times that you have to wait. Sometimes it's months and months to get stuff. Have you found that? I guess that's on higher ticket items, but even on some of the lower ticket items where components have been out of stock, so you've just got less choice. I mean, I don't know if that's really impacted, but I think here certainly for some industries that's been. I mean, people obviously don't want to wait, but they're forced to. I don't know if that's something that you've perhaps experienced so much, or whether because we get stuff from like the EU and China, whether it affects us.
Yeah, it was actually a huge deal. So during COVID, we would have those month-long wait times because the facilities were so backlogged, and it was really bad because we would be pinged. It would affect our metrics. So even though it's Amazon shipping the dang product, it'd be like, hey, like you're like they would ping us and like, hey, you're messing up. I was like, we're not messing up. It's like the whole thing. But yes. with that in mind, like, yes, during COVID, it was really, really bad. And then they didn't let anyone ship any new products in. And so it's like even worse. But with all that aside, now it's supply chain issues. So it's making it very, very difficult for us to actually ship in products, and having like getting in new products, things like that's been a really big issue for a lot of clients. So like we've been able to try to 3PL, setting up a 3PL has been vital, having a 3PL strategy. So not only doing FBA fulfilled by Amazon, also doing a third party company to basically ship out your products
Yeah,
fulfilled by merchant. So
yeah,
that way you can actually ship out those products without being FBA.
yeah.
At least while it's a good backup method always. First of all, no one likes their 3PL. They all suck. There's no like good 3PL, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But they're important to have because Amazon, rather than taking their 2 or 3 weeks to fulfill your inventory, will sometimes take 2 months. It just happens. It just happens.
Yeah.
And like rather than not being out of stock for those 2 months, you'll be able to have a backup method where you won't be screwed, because that happens all the time, because Amazon just wants to take their old dandy time to get things done, and where a lot of sales will be on the line. So having a 3PL strategy and fulfilling by merchant is crucial to being successful on Amazon, having that backup
It's really
method.
interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. That's really interesting, because I think sometimes people can see that as almost a not a competitor, but like a negative, but kind of turning it on its head, like you said, and actually having it as a backup plan, I think is really, really important. And that does sound like a really good way of getting around it. So no, that's really interesting.
How are the fulfillment centers in UK? Like I know nothing about like FBA and fulfillment through with in UK. Is
I
that
think that's the biggest. Yeah, no, it tends to be. I think most merchants do. Most of it is fulfilled by Amazon, so there's not really a massive. I mean, the third-party vendors are kind of looked at with sometimes with a bit of disdain. Like you said, the waiting times are a lot longer. A lot of the time when it's dispatched, it's dropship. It can be. It basically the wait times are quite long. So and they'll get dispatched through all sorts of weird and wonderful people as well. So it's kind of a bit more hit and miss. Whereas fulfilled for Amazon, I think certainly as a vendor, the only challenge you've got is that kind of, if they sell a load of one thing, don't sell a load of the other, and then they'll return and basically try and return loads of stock back to you. You have though. I'd say the challenges are probably more from a vendor point of view than from anything else. But no, I think it's most people I think are fulfilled by Amazon. Like I think there's quite a strong and distribution centres. I mean, they popped up probably more recently in more recent years, but they're everywhere. So the distribution is pretty good, to be honest with you. So it's not this what you would expect from Amazon. I mean, their couriers in the UK are fairly hit and miss. I would say your Amazon parcel may end up in a questionable location, but other than that, it may not end up where you want it to end up. But I'm pretty sure that's the same in the US as it is in the UK. I'm pretty sure that's probably not exclusive to us, but it's definitely, I would say, most things are available by Prime. Most things are, say, FBA. I don't,
yeah, and that's been a big selling point for Amazon, is that fast convenience checkout and the FBA. I think that's their biggest selling point of why everyone uses them, and having that trust factor that you don't have to enter in their credit card information. They're not going to lose your credit card information, and like another D2C site that you may actually get that. So that is a big selling point for Amazon, and really building that out. So I think that's really important. So we talked about different approaches to the Amazon UK person and then the Amazon US person. How would you sell to someone differently? Like, so you said that it's a little bit less in your face to a UK person.
yeah.
So how, with that in mind, how would you sell differently? Like, what tactics would you do to a UK person? Would you warm them up a little bit? And as a PPC strategist, like how are you approaching it to really optimize for the UK seller, the UK buyer?
So I think this probably depends on the value of the item that you're selling, for one. So I definitely think including some sort of branding activity. So I think one of the mistakes that you can make with Amazon sometimes is focusing too much on the effectively like the PPC elements. So like the sponsored brands and the sponsored products, that kind of thing. I think actually what can work really, really well is taking advantage of the other kind of display tools that Amazon now provide, and actually thinking about it from more of like a social media point of view, and actually doing some branding, talking about what the brand stands for, what kind of products you do, why you might want to use them, and like you say, do a little bit of warming up. Obviously, the challenge you've got is if you're marketing lower value products and there's not really the margin there to do that, in which case you might have to stick to the more performance orientated formats, which is no real different to what you would do across if you were presented with that challenge and say you wanted to use Google Ads and you were debating whether paid social, so like Facebook, Instagram, etc., was viable. So I don't really feel like it's it does depend on the client and the product, but actually generally I would say the ideal scenario would be doing a little bit of warming up first, and then kind of depending on how high a value and how long that buying cycle is, then maybe you'd have to introduce interim steps and other kind of messaging and other types of, and then slowly move it down to product level over time. But that journey, I would say, just depends on whether you're selling a £2,000 greenhouse or whether you're selling a £5 hammer or something. Obviously it very much depends, I would say, but yeah.
Is there a difference between any social media platforms that you see that are in the UK, like Victor, like Pinterest in the UK is like on fire? Like, is there a social media platform that UK people are using that the normal US person is like not like? We know TikTok's hot here, so that's normal. TikTok, Instagram, like all those are pretty hot. Is there a different platform that UK people are using that other people might not be?
I don't know. I mean, you'll tell me the answer to this now, but what we're seeing is a resurgence of channels like Reddit and Tumblr. So certainly depending on the niche of what you're offering, there does seem to be, and I think, say Reddit, for example, is a really good place for more niche kind of products or conversations. So I think that can be a really interesting one. I don't think that there's probably any massively different trends. I don't think we've got some kind of secret British social network that we're using here and not there. I mean, again, it comes down to the same rules, like you go where the people are rather than force them. So I mean, Pinterest is used. It's not, I wouldn't say it's massive, but then in certain circles, so say for example, like wedding planning or like house and home improvements or certain things, but I'm pretty sure that's no different to what you'd see in the US. I think it's more when you're looking at emerging platforms, for example, and thinking about, streaming and like taking advantage of like Twitch and some of those things, Spotify, which I guess depending on Spotify advertising might be a bit dodgy at the moment potentially, but it's maybe one to avoid. I can't think. I mean, like I said, you're going to correct me if I'm wrong here. I don't think that's any different to what you're seeing in the US personally, but you tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And is there anything that you wanted to communicate that, for example, that an average US seller does either wrong in the UK that you see people are coming in and say, hey, like this is always wrong, like it's not the way to approach it? Or is there any other recommendations if someone were to start selling in the UK that they need to start doing while they're in the UK market?
Not particularly. I mean, I think the only thing that springs to mind is just real basics. So one of the things that can be really frustrating is like spelling. Obviously, we do have some differences in how we spell things.
Oh yeah, we know that for sure.
knowing how we the words that we use to describe things, because again, there are certain things that are different. I think just making sure you take advantage of that. So when you're doing your product descriptions, when you're writing your product titles, just make sure that you actually get the basics right. I think really once you've got the basics right, then it's a case of looking at the analytics and the data and deciding which direction to push in and what's working and what's not. I don't think, say, keyword strategy or anything like that would be hugely different other than for reasons that we've just talked about.
Mhm.
I don't think there'd be anything groundbreaking that would be different. But one of the most, and I'm sure you're probably the same, but one of the biggest annoyances is when things are poorly translated, even between countries. When you read it and you think, well, this wasn't written by someone who, then it's just instantly annoying and it turns you off. Again, it's just anything that kind of makes you think, no, I think, and it's just the little things for me. So, and just, again, I'd just say the basics, good product imagery, good videos, real fundamentals. I don't think that changes between countries. I think it's just
True.
I don't think we're any more or less sophisticated than anyone else. I think it's just, we're probably just more easily annoyed. I think that's probably what it is. Maybe that's what it is. We're just a bit monarchy. I don't know.
That's funny. So yeah, is there anything else? But yeah, that was a great point. Is there anything else that you wanted to make sure that you communicate? That you either recommend or see that people will do anything else? Is there anything else that you wanted to portray there?
I think it's just taking advantage of all the tools that are available at your disposal. I think that Amazon is, I mean, it's a newer ad platform. It's been around quite a while now. I mean, I remember maybe 5 years ago, I don't even think you could select like a date range easily or compare dates and stuff. I mean, it was really like in the UK, certainly it was really new. So I think really just make sure, take advantage of the fact that people probably aren't using the Amazon DSP that much unless they're a massive company. Make sure that if you have a brand that you're trying to establish, take advantage of Amazon Display and actually use that to establish your brand here, because it will be really impactful, because not everybody's doing it. And on that vein, probably quite cheap as well, because I say cheap, probably not really cheap, but because there's less competition, naturally, I would say it's an easier place to establish yourself. So I think at the moment, because of where we are in terms of the marketplace, I think that there's a really big opportunity to do that. Whereas, yeah, that's probably the best advice I can give from an international perspective. If you want to make it in the UK, take advantage of the fact that we've not fully gone.
So from a PPC perspective, like, is there anything that you're seeing on the PPC level that's in the UK that is working well right now, that you think that would be valuable?
So I guess one of the things is, I guess it depends what sort of mindset you come into it from. So I think one of the challenges we often have is learning different, really basic, but just learning different channels. And obviously, if you come into Amazon with a Google Ads mindset, you're not going to succeed. I think trying and being bold with Amazon automation and letting it kind of at least show you what kind of queries are actually people are searching for, that can work really well. It's no different to using dynamic search on Google Ads or using even now like Performance Max or something like that. Like it's not really going to be any different. But I think using that, but also being super broad with your keywords and just making sure that you're also, again, if you've got any illusions of not adding too many keywords in a campaign, just throw them all in and see what works. Like I know that sounds really, if I said callous is the wrong word, but that sounds really, but I think actually, that's where you're going to get your most valuable data. And again, I that's always worked for me. I think as long as you remember that it's different, it's a different platform, the way that you're going to get it to work is fundamentally different.
Yeah.
That's really important, because if you try and retrofit anything that you're doing, like I said, if you went to social media and tried to do what you did on Google Ads, it's not going to work. And it's the same theory with this. So it's a really, probably not the most valuable tip, but I think in a really basic one. But for me, that's really, rethinking and understanding the nuances of it, I think is how you're really going to do it. But the keyword stuff, I thought Amazon were kind of almost streets ahead of Google in that they were broad match and that stuff was far more used on Amazon well before it became the in thing on Google Ads again.
Sure.
So yeah, I think that would probably be go into it with an open mind, I think, and try much broader keyword strategies. I think much broader than you used to, and I think you'll get much better results.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. So I bet we can go on for this for like 2 more hours, 3 more hours. But unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. Gemma, I'd love for you to tell them like where can the audience find you? What are like tell them your website, where they can find you, and where they can like ask for more information about you.
Cool. So if you go to fountainpartnership.co.uk, you'll be able to contact us, and you can find out more information, have a look at what we do, and get in touch. So.
And you're on LinkedIn too, right?
I am on LinkedIn. So if you search for my full name, so Gemma Russell, you should find me. You should find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect and ask me any questions if you have any.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you everyone for joining, and thank you so much for coming on. It's good having you. Thank you everyone. Thanks, guys.